Hello and welcome to this video from Combat Fusion Martial Arts on Kenpo self-defense techniques. My name's Andy Seetherson and today we'll be looking at the technique Twisted Twig. This is a two-pronged technique in the sense it teaches us how to apply a basic wrist lock to an opponent whilst also teaching us how to counter that same wrist lock. Now if you've never worked with wrist locks before, do take some time when getting used to how to apply the actual lock itself, how to grip the hand correctly and how to position it correctly for the application. And when you do start to apply the lock, apply gradual pressure, don't do any sudden movements. This will allow you to understand how the lock is applied effectively, and it will also allow your partner to understand their body needs in positioning and manoeuvring to help them to escape the lock. So let's have a look at the technique done from our three different perspectives without a partner. We'll then break it down as usual, look at some of the components, and then we'll get on and do some variations. So let's get into Twisted Twig. The attack for this technique is a basic wrist lock. This wrist lock is formed by the opponent directly grabbing the thumb side of your hand, with his fingers across the inner wrist and his thumb placed just below the large finger joint between the proximal phalanges and metacarpals. Your opponent then continues by having his free hand join his attacking hand in a mirror image grip to the little finger side of your hand. When in position, his fingers should layer upon those already on your wrist, and this secondary thumb join the thumb of the primary hand at the large finger joint. The forearm is then brought into a vertical position with the palm towards your face. From here, the wrist lock application can be completed. When applying the lock itself, avoid utilizing a two-dimensional method by either just simply flexing the wrist forward or by twisting the wrist in a horizontal plane. Rather combine both in a three-dimensional method of execution, which will take the wrist to the outside of the shoulder and directionally down. As we know, terminology for the arm in Kenpo is twig. Here in the attack we are twisting the arm with a wrist lock, hence the technique name Twisted Twig. Other points to be aware of when applying the wrist lock are avoiding having the arms locked and stretched away from your body. Attempt to keep your arms bent and with the hands close to your center mass, thereby utilizing the body mass to assist in the lock application. Different methods I am aware of being used to apply the lock for Twisted Twig are with the thumbs across the wrist and fingers to the rear, or from a handshake position, utilizing methods similar to that in the technique Gift of Destiny. Something we should always avoid is getting into a habit of presenting our opponent with an easy target. Do not proffer your limb to your opponent. Rather make him work for it. This gives you warning and time. Both are essential to overcome any attack. To make this attack effective, your opponent will need to step forward as the lock is applied. To prevent this, your initial move is to step forward and jam his forward step with your leg. Simultaneous with this step, have your free hand check at the grip on your wrist as you deliver an upward elbow to your opponent's solar plexus, which travels on to impact his chin by taking advantage of his reaction. Immediately after the elbow to his chin, continue this motion, delivering an outward elbow to his solar plexus again. When the arm travels from the upward elbow onto the outward elbow to the solar plexus, have your arm contour around your head, thereby employing fluidity in your application. Your checking hand remains checking above your elbow. From the elbow to your opponent's solar plexus, pivot into a reverse bow as you deliver a back hammer fist to his groin. We will now proceed on to the extension to Twisted Twig. If you do not require this information at your stage of training, you may wish to bypass the next section of this video. Immediately after the back hammer fist, remain in the reverse bow as you now have your back hammer fist convert into a vertical punch to your opponent's chin, with your checking hand pressing down on the rear of his head, both weapons creating a sandwiching effect. An interesting point is, with our opponent removed, this sandwiching strike is representative of the meditating hand over fist position. After the sandwiching strike, have your hands grab around your opponent's head and immediately rotate it to face your body. Then impact the side of the head with your lead knee, which comes directly from the reverse bow. After the knee has struck his head, plant it straight down and hug your opponent's head tight to your body, impacting his jaw with your hip's iliac crest, and straight away step back with your rear leg, further twisting your opponent's head, thereby throwing him onto the floor face up. As your opponent lands on the floor, follow up with a shovel kick to his face, which turns his head to face away from you. A shovel kick is executed by lifting the heel of your foot towards your buttocks, then kicking down into the target before allowing the foot to continue up in a vertical arc. On planting the foot after the shovel kick's execution, drop into a close kneel stance with your rear knee impacting your opponent's jaw, sandwiching it between your knee and the floor. Now rise up slightly and step back alongside your opponent's body, stepping over his arm if necessary, and pivot into another close kneel stance, this time dropping your rear knee onto your opponent's collarbone while simultaneously delivering a downward vertical punch to his face. Again rise up slightly and step back alongside your opponent's body, again stepping over his arm if necessary, and pivot back into another close kneel stance, this time dropping your rear knee onto your opponent's solar plexus. Deliver another vertical downward punch diagonally towards your opponent's face, which is timed to impact as he reacts to the knee into his solar plexus. As your opponent's head is struck back into the floor, lift your rear foot over his body, then by rotating your body in the air, deliver a downward looping roundhouse kick to his groin. From the roundhouse kick to his groin, front crossover and cover out, sweeping his knee down and stomping on his ankle as you go. And welcome back. So now we're going to take a look at some variations that can be done for Twisted Twig. These variations use a communal point within the technique. Now this is one specific point where several different variations can stem out of. We'll be working inside our opponent's guard to begin with. We will then be working the outside of his body whilst remaining inside his guard, and then we'll be working the live side of his body. So we've got about 6 or 7 variations to discuss, so let's get into the variations that we do at Combat Fusion to Twisted Twig.
So now we're going to look at the variations we do for Twisted Twig. We're going to use a communal point within the technique itself where we can actually float off into different variations from this one position. Rather than doing lots of variations for lots of different ideas, we're just going to use this one point and show the different variations that can stem from this one point in the technique. So, Gavin here is going to apply the attack to me. So, as he applies the lock to the wrist, we get to this position here, as we've seen in the video. We execute the technique by hitting into the solar plexus as normal, and we go into the upward elbow to the chin. Now then, from this position here, okay, I have the option of using a vertical drop position down, where I can crawl down to his face, come up with heel palm, and let a full strike to the throat. Now obviously you'll recognise that as part of heavenly ascent. So should the technique get to a situation where I can strike and drive up, but for some reason I am unable to continue the technique in this manner, I have the option to be able to drop straight down, one heel palm to the face and send the head back with a leopard's paw strike to the throat as per the technique heavenly ascent. But obviously we've got other options in the same vein. Puts the lock on again and I move in the same manner and lift up. But now instead of coming down and just doing heavenly ascent, let's just say Gavin was trying to grab for my head or something, I can drop down and go straight into bow of compulsion, striking to the groin. We can drive in, we can drive up, we can come down to heavenly ascent, we can take this, or I can come in and drive up, and then should Gavin try to go for my head, I can drop down and take bow of compulsion and insert these little variations within that point. So working from that same point again, this time I'll take it from this side so you get an outside view. We're working most of the time with Twisted Twig inside our opponent's guard. And generally when we fight, we like to be outside the guard because it's safe for us, so it prevents, it reduces the amount of grappling we can encounter. But obviously we have to learn to fight inside the guard. So with this one, we're going to stay inside the guard, but from here, we're going to work to the outside and put the arm lock on here, and I'm going to move forward, and I'm going to show from this side how we can go into broken round, this manner, okay? So, we're coming up, driving in, coming up into the chin. His arm stays in range for me to be able to lock onto the elbow as I go into a forward bow. This brings him forward and then scoop the groin as I'm bringing my hand out and hammer fist to the face. However, sometimes the lock doesn't work. Our opponent might be sensitive to pain and he tries automatically through instinct to adjust the position of his arm to relieve the pain. So we can this time then we go from here to here and we go to lock, but as we go to lock he feels the pain starting to occur or the chance of a break, and so he starts to bend the arm to try to escape. So that allows us to go into obscure claws when I can front crossover, lock the arm into a bent arm lock, step out, hit with a back fist, back with the head strike as it's coming back to me. So I'm hitting back into myself through the head, heel palm to the solar plexus, and then hand sword to the throat or take out any other available target. I know in obscure claws we generally do a single knuckle to the solar plexus, but that's really there for category completion, and it's a much more effective strike, maybe to the throat or a hammer fist to the face. So again, from here, if I drive in and go up, if his arm stays in a straight position, which allows me to lock his arm in this manner, I have the option to do broken ram, or if he tends to bend it, trying to escape, broken ram can then go into obscure claws. Now then, that's working vertically down this side and we're outside the body on this side. So let's concern ourselves now with this side of the body. Gavin places the lock on again. We drive into the solar plexus up into the chin. As I'm going around my head to execute the outward elbow to the solar plexus, he either makes a grab for me or tries to punch me or grab to my face, and my hand then comes down into an inward lock position before it would reach this target. Now I could work from here up, around, and as he punches or grabs, I can block and I could continue the technique. But I can also come up here as he attacks, block, and then move in something like 5 swords. So the options are there to change when I feel I need to change, or as the case may be, not need to change, just defending, carry on through to the technique, or even maybe going into something like shielding hammer extension. Now that's just dealing with the upper body. He's got legs. So let's just say we're in close range and he feels he has the option, not necessarily to do a roundhouse kick, but he has the option to deliver a knee kick, which obviously in close range is most probably going to be the more likely scenario to meet. So as we're doing the lock, the counter, drive up under the chin, as I'm doing the attack, Gavin decides to throw his knee either into my groin or into my mid-zone. So from here, I'm going up here as he strikes in, we move into swinging pendulum, keeping it close, and swinging pendulum done against a knee this time instead of a kick. Drive in 1, 2, lock, hit. And you continue with the technique as per the base model. Okay, so that's just a few variations you can try from this communal point here, where everything can stem out from this, either going up and vertically down, up, outside the body from inside, or up, continuing with the technique on the inside, defending against a grab here, or taking a lock on, decide to throw a knee and working with the knee by walking up the circle and working as that case swinging pendulum. So, just a few variations for you to have a look at and play with yourselves. Thanks very much. Thank you.
Well, thank you once again for joining us here on this video discussing the technique Twisted Twig. I hope you find the information contained in it useful to you in your training. Now, I have to do the usual YouTube housekeeping, so I'm going to ask you not to forget to give this video a thumbs up, hit that notification bell so you're told when we put up new videos, and also send it out to your friends by sharing it around. And also, if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to our channel. So, this is Andy Seatherton of Combat Fusion Martial Arts, wishing you a good night. Thank you very much for joining us. Goodbye.